Yo, what's happening? It's Matt Wenning at WenningStrength.com, and today we're going to go over the top movies that I got into to make me want to lift weights. Now, for a lot of people in different generations, it can mean different things, but I'm going to give you my top 5. So here we go. I would say that I've started to become infatuated with weights around 1985, 86. I was 6, 7 years old. I was laying in a hospital bed with my legs broken, and all I could do was watch some movies. And so from 1986 to 87, I would say was the big hot spot of when I really was bored out of my mind. I was cast up to my crotch, couldn't move, and all I could think about was working out, moving, playing again, doing stuff just to move my legs, because a lot of you guys may never experience this, but when I was in full-legged cast, I literally couldn't flex anything. I was locked in position. My legs couldn't breathe. I was hot all the time. I broke them right in the middle, towards the middle into summer. So all that fall, I was just absolutely miserable. And when your legs get hot in a cast, no amount of cooling is going to fix it. So I was stuck with movies, and I was infatuated with wanting to get into good shape because I couldn't move. So I'm going to give you guys my top movies that I think really drove me into lifting and started to help out. The number one movie that comes to mind when I'm thinking about getting strong is Commando. Now, Commando came out around the late 80s. I believe that Schwarzenegger in that movie, probably due to certain camera angles and getting super lean, looked amazing in that movie. He was jacked, he was super lean, but some of those still shots and like B-roll that they did in that movie was just absolutely insane. I remember the first opening credits of him walking in the forest with a big ass log like this, and his arms, bicep peak is still way over like 21 inches. He's just a monster. And I remember going, man, it'd be awesome to have arms like that and be that big. Then it had so many, and the movie had so many funny one-liners in it that it kept you attracted to it even if you weren't into working out. We talk about the advantages of sleeping well. Well, like the first 20 minutes, he snaps a dude's neck in the plane. He's like, "Don't disturb my friend, he's dead tired." So even Arnold back then knew the importance of sleep. Then you had other parts of it that they always seemed to match Arnold with bad guys that looked like they never even hit a gym. So if you remember the bad guy in it, he had a chainmail vest and leather gloves and probably about 11-inch arms. I mean, with a beer gut. It was just absolutely terrible. And his name was Bennett in the movie. You'll see some little clips we'll show you here. It's just terrible. And one of my favorite parts in the movie is when they're fighting at the very end, and he shoots Arnold in the shoulder, and he's saying, "How's the arm?" His name's John Matrix in the movie. He's like, "How's the arm?" And he's like, "Come over here and find out."
John, how's your arm, John?
Come over and find out.
And I remember like, oh my God, he beat the shit out of that guy. But the point is that Arnold was super jacked in that movie. The movie was super funny. Lots of one-liners, which Arnold was famous for. And that really got me into lifting weights. The second movie that I would say probably pushed me into lifting was Sylvester Stallone and Over the Top. So yeah, we can argue that Rocky's definitely did that too, but Over the Top was one of those movies that was kind of underground. It was about arm wrestling. It was absolutely terribly directed. It had horrible scenes of arm wrestling, and the bad guy at the end looked like he was a professional hot dog eater. He didn't look like he lifted weights at all. So it was funny. And his famous line in that was, your dad's chicken shit, or it was like, I'm going to break your shit arm. It was like just stupid stuff. And the funniest part about the movie is when it came out and I watched it. I remember the one guy that was in like a Bowflex shirt, or it was something like that back in the day. Fast forwarding to 2008, when Mark Bell's brother did the movie Bigger, Faster, Stronger, it shows him still at Venice Beach living in a fucking van training at Gold's Gym. I mean, and he doesn't look anything like he did in the old days. But the point is that a lot of those guys in there looked like they lifted weights, were pretty jacked. It was pretty interesting, but it was funny how Stallone probably only weighed maybe 170 pounds in that movie, and somehow he beats a guy that weighs like 300, which, is nearly impossible. But it's just funny the way they set it up and the storyline and all that. And the kid, could they have found a more whiny, bitchy kid? I mean, it was so bad, Hawk and Son and Hawk. So, Over the Top would have to be number 2 for me. Number 3, you can't get out of wanting to work out hard or be kind of jacked without watching Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. Now, Patrick Swayze didn't really come from lifting weights. He came more from dancing and doing stuff like that. But he was in immensely good shape. Conversely, I didn't even know at the time he was smoking like 2 or 3 packs of cigarettes a day. No wonder he died early. But the point is he was fucking pretty cranked in that movie, and he beat the shit out of people. And the thing of it was, I still remember a bunch of funny one-liners in that movie, like, you know, like, what if he calls my mom a whore, and then Swayze said, well, is she? And then they get into a fight about that, and then there was all kinds of stuff. And I remember Sam Elliott kicking a dude's knee clean out, like blowing his knee completely out, and he just looks at him laughing and says, it hurts, don't it? And Sam Elliott, in my opinion, was one of the only actors that could pull off not being a physically fit looking dude and still be one of the hardest ass guys you ever saw. So if you haven't seen Roadhouse, or you're too young to have been around at that time, you need to go watch it again, because it's absolutely fucking hilarious. But it kind of makes you want to work out. Number 4, which could be put up at the higher level, would be Predator. And Predator, not only because Schwarzenegger's in it, but you have Jesse the Body Ventura, you got Carl Weathers. You know, those are the 2 big guys that were kind of big workout guys. Carl Weathers was still immensely muscular from the Rocky movies, even in Predator. But you watch, the funny thing was the camaraderie or lack of camaraderie between him and Jesse the Body Ventura. So some inside information, I've actually heard Arnold talk about this at Gold's Gym, but Arnold used to mess with Jesse the Body because Jesse Ventura used to say that his arms were bigger than Arnold's. So they would send Jesse like smaller shirts so that he felt like his arms were bigger, and actually we all know Arnold's arms were way bigger. But the point was, is Arnold would actually play against that, and his competitive nature between him and Jesse the Body wasn't really shown on the film, but I guess in the backstage part of the film they were doing that big time. But at the end of the day, who walked out with the bigger gun? Jesse the Body Ventura had a minigun. And what's funny is, if you actually talk to any gun experts, when he's shooting that minigun into the forest trying to shoot things he can't see, he's dumping about a truckload worth of ammo that there's no way you could carry in a backpack. I think that I heard an expert say that with that backpack amount of ammo, that it would be able to fire that gun for about 2.5 seconds. So, as you can tell, the movie's just completely outlandish. But you got a bunch of dudes walking around pretty jacked. I mean, it's definitely a movie that would make you want to be in shape. Last but certainly not least, and might be even at the top again, is Bloodsport. Now, Jean-Claude Van Damme in his younger years was completely jacked. What really struck me about Jean-Claude Van Damme was his leg size and leg power. He was actually a European kickboxing champion or something of that nature, so he was actually a real deal fighter. But you watch Bloodsport, and Bolo Young, the Asian guy that's in it, probably has the biggest pecs I've ever seen an Asian guy have. He actually was pretty jacked for being in that movie. Jean-Claude Van Damme, those guys really started to spark a lot of interest in me wanting to go to the gym and have that physique and that look. As you can tell, I still watch these movies fairly regular. I don't have regular cable at the house, 1, because I live in the country, and 2, because these are still, to this day, on top of my CD player or DVD player, and I'm still watching these movies probably at least one of them once a week. So, if you haven't seen these movies or are a younger guy, go back and watch them again. Leave your comments below what your favorite movies are, and I'll talk to you guys later.